Well, hello there. This is Coach Diana, and I am coming to you by myself, trying to go live here on Instagram as well. So just giving me a minute to see if that's working well. And I want to thank you for being here with me today. If you're out there on Instagram, oh, I see you joining now. How wonderful. It would be great if you could say hello and let me know that you can hear me clearly. I'm not using my professional mic today. I'm at my office. Yeah, where are you watching from this morning? Hi, Jennifer. It's nice to see you. I see some people out there. Mercy and Grace, Cheryl, Debbie out there on Instagram. We have a special topic today called Discover Your Noble Self. And I just want to invite you from wherever you are. I'm in Ohio, and we're having a little bit of a rainy day, but it's a warm day here. Yeah, East Texas. Oh, thank you, Raquel. Wondering where you are all and what kind of weather you're having today. Hi, Gwen. Kentucky. All right. Well, I want to remind you that this is Leslie's public Facebook page. So I'm going to just remind you that it's not private. If you leave your comments, anyone will have access to your comments. I'm going to hide our ticker for a little bit here. I'm Diana. And I'm really happy to be with you here today. We're talking about discovering your noble self. And I'm wondering really what brought you to this live today. If when you heard the topic, what were your thoughts about noble self and yourself in relation to that? This is something I need to learn more of. This is something I certainly want to incorporate in my life. What are your thoughts around the noble self? Wow, we've got England in the house too. Northern Nevada, Hawaii. That sounds beautiful. Minnesota. All right. So yeah, ladies, when you think about noble self, what comes to mind for you? Give me some feedback in the chat. All right. We have a concept that we've used for many years related to the noble self. We call it the big circle self. And as we kind of transition and grow as a team, we're developing that concept and calling it our noble self. I think it has a much deeper meaning when I talk about my noble self. Even just thinking about it kind of makes me want to sit up straight and be all here and all present for you. Yeah, I'm not sure what noble self means. Learning to respond instead of react. That's a part of it. What about you ladies out there on Instagram? I think I can see your comments. What are your thoughts about noble self and what that entails and what it means? Yeah, a part of noble self is speaking up, using boundaries, having respect for yourself and self-care. Yes. And Run Mom has it. Living according to your values, God-given talents and opportunities. Doing what's right, regardless of how you are treated. How many of you struggle with noble self? For me, what I love about the concept of noble self and some of the work that we do in our groups, well, not some of the work, a lot of the work that we do in our groups is really referencing who we want to be. And when I think about noble self, it gives me a construct to think about who I choose to become. Oh, and a part of a noble self is serving others. I see that from Salman Danielle from Pakistan, a volunteer. Let's see. Okay, we've got, yeah, a part of that is, yeah, there we go. Who did God create us to be? There we go. I'm just floating down here, ladies, for you. What work did God create in advance for me to do? You're getting a really broad concept when we talk about noble self. What does that really entail? You're coming up with some really good comments. getting healthy, becoming the best version of myself with all the gifts and talents that God gave me. So ladies, I do treat myself weekly to an orthopedic massage, and it's just such a special time for me. And my person who's become a friend reminded me to take care of myself and to think of myself first. Many of us don't do that. Many of us put everything else as priority in our lives, and it robs us of becoming our noble self. So there's so many aspects to this. Yeah, we don't want to abandon ourselves in favor of any other agenda. Jennifer is saying, living in a deep awareness of who we are in Christ and an unwavering and relentless pursuit of God's truth and grace. Being our best self I think God intended for us to be, and getting healthy. Yeah, there's a lot of different things we can do. You know me, I love definitions. And so I'm going to pull up my notes here. I can, working with a small screen here today. So a simple definition for noble self is showing fine qualities or high moral principles and ideals. It's having them, possessing them, living them out. And so our goal, I love the scripture in Proverbs 31:10 that says, a wife of noble character, who can find her? She is worth far more than rubies. And I like to take that verse, whether or not you are a wife, I feel like God is calling us to noble character. And he's telling us that it is precious to have a noble character. When we look at the scripture verse in Luke 8:15, that says, the seed on good soil stands for those with a noble and good heart, who hear the word, retain it, and by persevering produce a crop. So the efforts of our noble self are going to be the crops or the fruit that we produce from the life of pursuing what it looks like to walk with a noble self. So we're going to spend some time today, and I love your interaction because I'm here by myself. Sometimes it's fun to have another coach with me to talk, but please, let's get chatty in the chat so that I recognize that you're out there. Since I can't see you face to face, it'll be so helpful. So I did put some things together today for us to think about and talk about. You know, when we think about a noble self, I wonder, do you have that concept in a very descriptive way of who you are in your noble self? How do you define yourself? You know, the truth is that God sows his word in our hearts, but we have work to do. We have to hold on to the word of God and endure. And many times life gets in the way of us being our noble self. And sometimes the hardships and the difficulties that we have can cause us to be a little bit reactive emotionally, even spiritually, physically. But the truth is, the path to spiritual growth can be simple. And I see, I want to welcome those of you that are doing Walking in Core Strength with us. I see Elizabeth is. I'm excited for that. That is so awesome, because that's one of the concepts that we work on is who is yourself and how do you walk in the strength of your noble self. So we want to talk about good soil. I want to be a woman of good soil, and I think I'm getting there because there's been many storms that I've weathered. I attempt to try to stay the course and listen, and I really want to be a hard follower of Jesus. And you know, I work with a lot of women and some men as well. And one of the things that I think we hear a lot, that I hear a lot, and maybe even sometimes feel myself like, when is this going to be over? When am I ever going to arrive? When am I ever going to get there? And I want to say that operating, defining, working, and walking in your noble self is the path of our lifetime. And the process will never be over as long as we're on this earth. But what we're working toward is a heart that has learned that is growing, that has matured, and that is healing. And we may suffer many, many hurts, but it is possible to heal from those hurts and to grow strong and to move forward. We need one another, though I really don't believe developing and exercising your noble self is possible alone. We are so designed and created for connection and community. So we need one another on the path to discovering our noble self. And I'm just curious for you. I want to ask you the question, who do you walk with that inspires your noble self? How do you define those people on your path that can help draw that out and that you can sharpen as iron sharpens iron as well? What do they look like? And what are their ideals, their principles, and their qualities? Sometimes I think we are so longing for connection that we don't really consider that a part of us discovering our noble self is walking with others who are on that journey as well, and how empowering that can be. And so just as I say that now, I want to ask you, maybe you have a pen and a paper in front of you right now. Who comes to mind? Henry Cloud has a book called Power of the Other, and I think about his corner four person. A corner four person is someone that you walk with, that inspires you, that can challenge you, but in a way that helps you to want to be better. They share similar values and characteristics that you do, a similar path. We know that developing our noble self is a part of what we must do, but we also need to do that in the context of community. If you have questions, please put them in the chat, or Nancy will transfer them to our document that we have. If you want to ask them privately, we have a question tracker, and she can put that up in the chat for you. So if you have a question that you want to ask privately, today I think I'd like to just take questions related to the topic or to our upcoming walking and core strength group. We're starting next week, ladies. So if you want to get in, I would encourage you to do it quickly, because we need to see where everyone will fit in the sequence, and you want to have your choice of what will work best for you. And you do have time. I mean, it's not too late to get started in the group and be with us, because we are going to be looking at walking in the best parts of ourself. What does our core self look like? And along with that, during our walking and core strength group coaching, we really do work on this concept of my noble self. So we do some work in terms of defining, what do I look like? What do I aspire to? And each one of you are so uniquely designed and different. And a big part of what we need practice doing is first discovering with awareness and then stepping into walking it out. So you'll have 3 months to practice walking that out with one another as we're developing that concept. And there's so much about walking in our noble self. I mean, it encompasses our thoughts, it encompasses our choices. And I think the first part of it is really just evaluating what's most important to me and who do I want to be. And again, as you have said in the chat, what are my gifts and what are my talents? And, ladies, I have discovered, I love taking inventories. That's and learning as much as I can about myself. And one of the things that I have discovered is that I have gifts and talents that I'm cemented in, but as I go through seasons of life, how I express them is really different. And I have to be open and fluid to expressing those aspects of myself in ways that make sense for whatever decade in life that I'm in. And so that can be a challenge as well. And I think that no matter what stage you're in, it's always helpful to have others kind of think that through with you and to be coached around that. So it is true, God is engaged in creating ourselves to be that noble and righteous person who's a follower of Him. And the truth of the matter is we get to participate in that process. We get to become. It's part of our journey. Even in difficult circumstances, we choose who and how we want to be. We choose our noblest self. So thinking back to maybe some difficult circumstances that you might have had recently, if you reference that and just taking a pause, what would you have done different? Who do you wish you would have been, maybe in your response or in your mind or in your judgments? Those are the things that you want to pay attention to and note, journal, so that you can move toward being different in the future. And I think it's really important to evaluate those experiences that you have, maybe where you failed to live up to your ideals, so that you put it front and center and you can move in that direction. Just like when I start, which I am doing an exercise program. So a part of my noble self is to be physically strong, because if I'm not, I'm in chronic pain and I hurt. So starting my exercise program, we all have done this, where we'll start, okay, I'm going to work out. I'm going to work out 7 days a week. And what I've learned is my goal is, with intention, to move forward to becoming stronger physically, but I cannot commit to saying that I'm all or nothing, because I will fail. And so when you find a quality that you're failing in, what you want to do is to make a note of that. You want to pray over it, and you want to remind yourself that you're growing in this area. You haven't got it all together yet. So I am growing in my physical strength. And each time that I make effort in that, I may not do it every day, but I am moving into a consistency and a pattern of becoming stronger. And I want to invite you into this work, whether you choose to join our Walking Core Strength or not. You can choose to become more noble in how you live your life and in accordance with how God's designed you. All right. There's a quote that I borrowed from Leslie, and it's from Viktor Frankl in Man's Search for Meaning. And I'm going to read it to you. It says, "Everything can be taken from a man, but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose your attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose your own way." So just asking yourself, I love just the prompt to, what attitude am I choosing today? What what are the thoughts on my mind? What is my heart attitude toward my day, toward my life, toward those people that are in my environment, just right here, right now? And so when you check in with yourself, is that your noble self? And giving yourself little prompts and reminders throughout the day. How am I doing with walking in my noblest part of myself? And what am I literally choosing? I came to the realization earlier this week, when I woke up in not so great of a mood or mindset, that I was choosing to stay in that. And the words came to me, "You are thriving." And I wasn't thriving in that moment, but I chose to say those words to myself. And then I chose my next steps forward. I chose to behave differently. I put on some dance steps and started dancing. And before you know it, because I chose differently, I chose to walk in a nobler way about how I would set my day, the rest of the day followed. Yeah. So when you think about your person, recognizing that you're not just what you do in life, whether you're a mom, an architect, an accountant, a baker, or any other thing that you do, you are literally a person. And God made you to become someone special. He made you unique. There's no one like you. And that's the process He wants you to engage in along with Him and in His power. And so when we think about, how did God make you? What are the desires He put in your heart? Because we're all so different. I know for me, I'm very different than some of those in my family. One of my desires is, I love animals. If I had a choice when I was younger, I would have had an animal farm. Not everybody's like that. I married a person who does not really like animals. Big, big difference in how we express our gratitude and our love for creatures. Um, some of us like them inside the house. Some of us like them outside of the house. But how has God, I'm just curious, how has God designed you? What are you noticing that you flourish in? What are the desires of your heart? That's a part of defining your noble self. What are my values? What are my virtues? But even what just are the characteristics of my personality? What is it that I really am drawn toward in life? So some words that go along with noble, which I love words, are a horse and a cat. Yeah, I mean, animals to me, they light up my soul. They just love unconditionally. Some of them can be ornery and a little cantankerous, but I get so much joy out of being around animals, and I'm just different that way. Some of you love babies. You'll volunteer in the nursery just to be around babies. And I jokingly say, not that I don't value children or babies, but if you give me a choice, I'm going to take the animal over the little infant. That's just how God made me. And so we have the freedom to notice and to choose and to not make excuses for why we are different or what our preferences are. So my encouragement to many of you, and I know our population of women, don't let somebody tell you who you are or what's good for you. Yeah, see, yeah, we're all so different. So when I think about, and when I think, I looked up some synonyms for noble, and so I just want to read these to you. And if you find these are things that you want to, the words that you want to aspire to, characteristics and qualities, write them down. Righteous, virtuous, good, honorable, honest, upright, uncorrupted, reputable, unselfish, generous, self-sacrificing, brave, reputable, moral, ethical, worthy, decent, upstanding. And even as I read some of those, I think there are some areas where I can grow to be more like that. But if we don't label and get a concept of who we are in our noble self, how do we know what we're moving toward? How do we know what we're aspiring to? And so in my effort to get strong physically, I have a plan. I literally have detailed instructions for what I'm moving toward. So as you're thinking about moving toward your noble self or living out of your noble self, what characteristics or qualities are going to mark you? Write those down on your paper. Keep them around you so that you can review them and move toward those every day. So we can say that a noble self really is a person that has a strong sense of values and morality and who strives to live a life of purpose. And we're called to love and to serve one another in a healthy, balanced way. So some characteristics of your noble self are having some values. And everyone's values are going to be different. As I just said, I value animals greatly. I love animals. I value working with people. I value healthy eating. What are some of the values that are a part of your noble self? What do you hold to a high standard? I value authenticity. I value courage. I don't always live out my courageous self, but it's something I want to anchor in. So as you think about your values, one of the things that we do in our group coaching is to help you define what are your unique values. How do you define yourself that way? And maybe you haven't taken the time to listen or to even think through yourself. Here we have integrity. Yeah, what other values come to mind? I value time with friends. So I value relationships. A part of your noble self is your purpose. You're called to unique values. Some of our values are common among one another in this community. We're called to a sense of purpose. And one of the things that we want to do is have a clear sense of purpose and meaning in our life. Sometimes we get lost along the way and we need the help of others and some internal work to figure out, what is my purpose now? And how does my life have meaning? This is all a part of developing your noblest part of yourself. Yeah, I see Deborah saying, I value my love for people. Awesome. Yeah. I value my courage to stand up for what is right. Yeah. Oh, I love that, Tamara. Leaving someone better than when you first met them. Love and connection. So important. We are created and designed for love, belonging, and connection. So a part of discovering our purpose is really connecting to our belonging. Where do I belong? How do I express myself? And it's not like, how do I fit in? Discovering our noblest self helps us to define who we are so that we figure out where we belong, not trying to fit in just anywhere, but where we belong, where we can express the deepest part of ourselves. And then along with that, which I just have been fortunate because God was so good to me early on in my life, that He put a desire in my heart to do the type of work that I do. And so a part of the way that I serve Him is in the work that I do. And so, asking ourselves, with how God has designed me, can I live this out in a way that serves others and helps me and them to transcend our limitations? It's a part of how we grow and we help others to grow. So if you're in this community, I've no doubt that you're committed to growth and maturity, and that is a part of your noble self. Being dedicated to maturity, to personal growth, to understanding, to insight. And all of this will lead to a greater sense of self-worth for you and an inner confidence. And so if you're feeling like the rug's been pulled out from under you and you don't know who you are any longer, you're wanting to identify aspects of your noble self. You're wanting to learn possibly how to live in that core strength of your noble self. And again, of course, I'm going to make a plug here for those of you that have just signed on that aren't familiar with our work. We do group coaching. We do the walking and core strength coaching groups. We do them twice a year. And so this will be the last opportunity you'll have for this season. We won't be doing walking and core strength again until the fall. It's a 3-month group. We meet 90 minutes every other week for 3 months. And it's a community of 15 women who grow to know and respect and love one another, really, in the process of what we're talking about today. And it's a great opportunity to dig your feet in and anchor in what it looks like to have some inner core strength. And it's a concept that Leslie designed and developed, and we have wonderful curriculum for you. There'll be work for you to do. So if you don't know how to do your own work, you don't have to figure it out. You can come and join along with us. All right, I'm just going to get back to my topic a little bit and maybe check a little bit and see what y'all are saying. Yeah. All right. Well, I'm hoping that for those of you that are considering, things will work out for you to join us this time. And I always like to ask the question, what could be different if you decided to engage in the growth work? All right. Parts of our noble self are generosity. A noble self has some generosity, and they share. And so asking myself, where can I be generous today with others? Where can I be generous with myself? Sometimes we're not generous with ourselves. How can I share in my generosity? And then again, finally, kindness and respect. And I love the thought of my noble self not only being kind to others, but also being kind to myself, because many of us are not compassionate and do not bring kindness toward ourselves in our thoughts, in our words, and even in the choices that we make. So, just referencing the example I gave you, kindness to myself is taking time to do my exercises so that I can grow strong, so my lower back doesn't hurt, so I can give more, serve more, because I sit when I work. And so it also means fulfilling everything that I'm committed to. So I want to invite you to identify your core values, to think deeply about what truly matters to you. Start putting it down on paper, and maybe ask a friend or two, what do you notice about me? Maybe give a friend a list of qualities or characteristics and ask them what they experience in you. Because sometimes I think we don't see ourselves fully, and it can be helpful to ask someone else. Also, reflecting on your past actions. When did my noble self show up? And how can I celebrate that and come back to that aspect of my noble self more often? In what ways can I use and activate my noble self in a community setting? As I said, we're meant for relationship and connection. So we want to exercise those gifts, those talents, and those qualities in the context of a community in relationship with others. And it doesn't just mean your church community. We have a community here. It could be your coaching group community. It could be your exercise community. If you're like me, I love crafts. I think actually one of my most fun things to do, as we're talking, it's just coming to me. I want a community of women that want to just go do crafts. That for me is fun. It's social, and it's just uplifting. All right. Continuous learning, and I think most of all, anchoring in your authenticity. So I think this is a good time for me to answer any questions that you might have. And I think Nancy has put out the link for the question tracker. And I just want to acknowledge what you've been saying in the chat. My noble self values being honest with myself and others. That's amazing. I love that. Honest with myself and others. And that's, if you haven't, if you're not familiar with our core, that's the beginning of the core work that we do. It's one of my favorite steps, and the one that I'm challenged still in. Even though I'm working on my core, I know the concept, I am still challenged. In what ways am I being honest with myself today? Telling myself the truth. And how am I portraying that to others? In what ways might I pretend? So when someone asks me, how are you doing today? What's your first response? I try to be as honest as possible and as vulnerable as I feel like being when someone asks me that question. Yeah. So Christy, we have several sections open. So I would ask you, if you're interested in joining the core strength groups, that you go to the link. Nancy will put the link in the chat for you, and you can click through and see what days and times are open for you to select. We have classes, I believe, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, actually Thursday and Friday. I'm not sure what sections are open, but what I ask is that you find a time that you can commit to and that works for you, because if you commit to a time and you're not able to make it, you won't be as happy with your results. We want you to be a part of that group, to experience the growth and the transformation and really the connection of the community. And I would ask you, if core self has been on your heart for months, what does that mean, Deborah? Have you been mindful about your core self? Or are you speaking about wanting to join the group? Yeah. So as we ask ourselves, being an example to others by applying this to our own life, living it out, walking it out. I don't know about you, but I can't do it alone. Isolation is bad. And so I'm hoping that you have others in your life that you're just paying attention and you're noticing. Like sometimes you can be hanging out with a group of people and asking yourself, what's wrong with me? Why don't I fit in here? And my assumption is you probably don't fit in there because there's some aspect of you that's not being addressed. In other words, you're not able to express who you fully are. Like if I'm in a crowd or even my family and they're talking about sports, they're having a conversation about football or football mainly, I would say, I can't engage. I'm not a part of that. That's not where I belong in that community. And so being in a community where I flourish, I've learned people have similar values and they express themselves on a deeper level. That's just who I am. That's not wrong or right, bad or good. It's just who I am. So knowing who you are and how you want to walk in that is really a part of finding your noble self. All right. What questions do you have for us? If you're in Australia, I can't do the calculations, but we have had ladies in our group who are all over the world. So I'm wondering if there would be a time frame that might work for you. We had some evening sections opened as well, or an early morning one might work for someone who's across the pond there. So thank you, Bright Page. I did your Conquer a year ago. Best insights of my decade. Totally helped me change my outlook and perspective. I'm so grateful for your sharing as well. All right. Yeah. And I love that, as you said, Deborah's saying that she's a pastor and she wants to apply these principles to the women that she works with in her life as well. And so as we walk them out, we can live them out. So I'm going to just kind of scoot over here and look for my questions if I can find. Let me see if I can find that. Here we go. All right. Oh, okay. So we have just a couple questions here. And I want to thank you for your comments and your participation. It's so much more fun to be here with you as you're dialoguing with me in the chats. All right. And here's something important someone is mentioning. Daylight savings time starts soon, which is going to mess us all up. Trying to figure out how that works. I usually just go to the internet and I try to find a website that kind of calculates the time for me, because sometimes I get a little lost in my mind when I'm trying to figure out who's what and where. So I'll just put in because all of our time zones, I believe that we quote our Eastern Daylight. So if you just put in what time is it in Sydney, Australia at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, then you can kind of figure that out. The program in the fall, when do we start? I believe we start in September. So the question I want that you have written here is, can hormone imbalances affect our noble self? And my experience with hormone imbalances, even at this decade of my life, is they can affect our mood state. And our mood state affects, if we allow it and we're not aware, our mood state can affect our thoughts about ourselves, our attitude about our environment. And so I think indirectly, I know I've been reading the research on hormone replacement and things like that. And so yes, it can be a factor, but you don't have to be a victim of that. And I think that's a part of really what we do focus on in walking in core strength is I want to identify my mood state. I want to identify the thoughts. In the example I gave you just this week, I woke up in a really difficult mood state. It was very heavy. And, you know, gratefully, new words came to my mind because your mind can really exacerbate your circumstances and it can take you down the tubes. And so one of the things that we work on and that we practice is living out of our noble self, our core selves, and noticing what our thoughts and our feelings and our emotions and the sensations in our body are teaching us and showing us, but we make different choices. And so I would say you're not a victim of you may have a hormone imbalance, but you don't have to be a victim of that. And I think one of the things that I like to do is if I know I'm having difficulty with something like a hormone imbalance, I will look at natural ways to counter that. And I'm sure that at some point that there's a medical response to that, but I try to look for everything I can do before I do that last step of, medically treating it. So it might be, and I know because I'm doing it now, regular physical exercise is a huge thing. Your sleep cycle, the content of your food. So getting your lifestyle in order can really affect all of that as well as your noble self. Because when I'm not eating well, it does affect the energy that I have, and it can affect your mind state. Oh, this is interesting. I hadn't heard this before, and I didn't know how that would be, but he said I couldn't do it. He's saying a destructive relationship can cause a hormone imbalance. So I don't know the science behind that. We don't have any Saturday times right now. We do not for the walking in core strength. I wish you could take it this round too. All right. One more question, and then I think we'll call it a day, ladies. How do I become my noble self when I feel like I'm just existing with no real life purpose? That is such a good question, and thank you for asking that. There are steps to becoming your noble self. We've talked about many of them today, but in answer to your question, if I was going to give you some bullet point steps about how to become your noble self when you're really down and you feel like you're just existing, change is definitely in order. And so I would make a self-assessment of what's not working in your life right now. And that would mean diet, that would mean physical activity, the people I'm around or the lack of people I'm around. The lack of connection can be huge. Because all of those factors can help you to have some energy toward life. And then really assessing what is it that makes me sing? What makes my heart sing? And you want to add some of that. If you're just existing and you don't have energy, physical activity can help quite a bit. But defining how you want your life to look and what qualities and characteristics you want to move toward can be a real good first step. So I want to ask you, what you're as we're gonna close a little early today. What are your greatest takeaways from what we talked about today? I'm so curious. We've talked a lot about the ways in which you can grab onto your noble self. What will you take away from today? What was your learning? And what will you put into action? Just wondering. We've heard so much today. What will you take away and what will you put into action? Barbara O'Neill and hormones balance on face boost for health. I don't know what that is, but that sounds interesting. I don't know about doing hormones on your own, but what are you taking away? I know you're taking away more than Barbara O'Neill, Tamara. What are you going to do with your noble self this week? What quality are you going to move toward in your noble self? How are you going to grow, mature, and step into it? What are your takeaways from our time together today? Look at your values. Yes, there are a lot of good values inventories. I would suggest maybe just printing out a list of values, and I just go through and I just highlight. I try to like narrow it down, but what's important to me? What jumps out at me? Have better care for myself and not feel bad. Yeah. I mean, I literally had to have someone tell me today, put yourself first over all those other to-dos. All right. Thanks, Tamara. Thanks for that hint. I will look into her. I know there's a lot of people out there. Weigh in and let us know. What are you going to do to cultivate your noble self? Get physically moving. Yes. I think getting physically moving just lifts your spirits. And I feel like you have an attitude more of, I can do this. You just have more energy toward life. So for that person who asks, like, I'm just pushing through, I think you need to get moving. And like I said, the other day within my mood state, I just literally told myself, you are thriving. I wasn't in the moment, but I'm stepping myself through. And I told Alexa to put on happy music. And she put on The Temptations, The Way You Do the Things You Do. And it's such a cute song. And before I knew it, I was dancing and I wasn't heavy. So small steps can make great changes. And just think, if we take small steps in succession, one after another, we can do it, ladies. And I will tell you, we do need to be here with one another. And I think women, we're blessed because we are really supportive. And in this group of women, we are empowering and encouraging and supportive. So I kind of want to invite you, the groups that we do, it's a safe, loving, and inviting environment for you. And so are all of our communities. But if you can't do that now, make sure you're in a community with people who encourage you. You don't need a huge group. You need a few healthy women to walk with. So I want to thank you, and I want to thank Nancy. You don't get to see her. She's our back end support, and she's out there supporting us. And I think we'll leave you with these thoughts and these words. And so I'm gonna maybe do something fun. Maybe I'll go to the craft store and make a vision board of my noble self, so that I can have it to look at daily. I'll post it for you when I do in the comments. And if you have one, post yours in the comments as well. Thank you, ladies. Thank you for being with me and for dialoguing. And I'll see if I can figure out how to end this Facebook Live. Oh, here we go. On Instagram. We're working with multiple platforms. Thank you so much for being with us on YouTube and Instagram. And we hope we get to see you again soon. Bye for now, ladies.